Hello and welcome to the Property Roundup here on iPropertyRadio with myself, Carol Tallon, the show where we chat to industry experts to get a view on what's happening on the ground and to learn about new trends emerging. This show is sponsored by daft.ie, Ireland's most visited property website. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Niall Browne, partner with O'Donnellan Joyce Auctioneers in Galway and private treaty and new homes manager. Niall, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Carol, good to see you again. It's been a long time.
It has been a long time and a lot has changed. And it feels like every time we're talking about the property market, and particularly when we're looking at the regions, it's been such a period of change and transition over the last number of years. And we're not done with that yet. So
No,
look,
sure.
I mentioned in the lineup there that you're the private treaty and new homes manager. So look, let's start with the new homes, because I think that's a really interesting thing. In terms of development land, new homes, and I suppose the pipeline for Galway City and County, what are you seeing?
Well, the main area that we're working on at the moment, you'll see a growth in the suburbs, mainly towards Moycullen, where we've two schemes ongoing at the moment, and then you've got Moycullen, you're into Crockwell, and then into Ballinasloe as well. So we cover a range of different areas, I guess, as well. In particular, then some of our regular clients, the likes of O'Malley's and so on as well, building in Galway City. So we service Galway City and County. Particularly with developers we've worked with over the years as well. But yeah, you've seen a sudden growth out to the likes of Moycullen, Oranmore and so on as well, mostly on account of price levels. City centre obviously is quite expensive, and then as you get into the suburbs, then it becomes a little bit less costly, I guess. So demand and take-up, particularly with the two schemes we've had in Moycullen, has been absolutely through the roof.
And are they all home buyers?
All home buyers, all first-time buyers, very few investors. The investors don't seem to be going for new homes at all at the moment. So it's
that will be welcome news for the first-time buyers. They've already been fending off competition from approved housing bodies. And, you know, when you've got a situation that you've got the first-time buyers competing for the same properties as not just investors, but, approved housing bodies for social housing, we've had a really strange dynamic in the market that first-time buyers.
It's a harrowing time for a first-time buyer. You've got competition between these housing bodies, and you've got, people who are looking for parts of investments, but those are kind of a little bit abated at the moment. So you're seeing a lot of first-time buyers coming. The age profile we're probably seeing is between about 35 and 40. In some cases, and depending on the house type, you'll find people downsizing, maybe from a larger house into a new estate, who want energy-efficient homes as well. So I mean, what they're getting as standard is just incredible. I mean, an A2 rated house with underfloor heating and all the bells and whistles that come with the new home, it's hard to give it up.
And what kind of prices are you looking at there on average?
Typically, 3 beds can range anywhere from between 350 and 420 for a 3 bed, depending on the location again. And then 4 beds can often get up to around 470 to 480. They're dependent on location as well, whether or not you go for city or county as well. But yeah, everything comes to the bells with new underfloor heating and all the energy efficient things that go with it.
And exactly what first-time buyers want and need. It's interesting. I'm always curious about the profile of first-time buyers, and we know from all the data that the age profile of first-time buyers, they're definitely first-time buyers are older now than we might have seen a decade and a half ago. So you're seeing an average of kind of maybe 35 to 40-year-olds.
Yeah,
most couples, or are you seeing many?
You have a lot of couples coming together. Mainly, then in some cases, then you got single ladies. Us gentlemen wouldn't be that well organised financially. We tend to spend it before we have it. But no, in some cases, then you get organised ladies who are just hell bent on getting their new home. If they have to buy it themselves, they try their best to do so. But yeah, I mean, when I started first, the best part of 20 years ago, you'd have first-time buyers at between 22 and 23 and 24. But cost and finance and life has gotten very expensive. So now the age profile is between, say, 35 and 38, I guess, as well.
Niall, you're the first estate agent I've interviewed over the years who's actually pointed out that most of the single buyers are female rather than male. And that has actually been our experience, but it was anecdotal. So I don't know, is there data to show that? And I certainly haven't seen it. But that has been our experience.
It's incredible. I mean, ladies are far more organised than us guys, I have to say as well. But yeah, it's they're strong. They're very, they have a strategy. They want to get their home. And sometimes if they're even in a relationship, they don't want to buy with that person unless there's a fáinneog on the finger.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's a credit to them. It's a big ask financially as well. But they're very, very smart ladies as well who are coming together and make it work.
Do you know, I just think it's an interesting observation. One of the other things I'm very curious about is, you know, particularly post-COVID, we've seen that during COVID with the shift in work and how people are working, we've seen a return in some cases to regional cities and towns and also to rural areas of people who may or may not have a connection with the area. They just are choosing this area, and Galway is a particularly desirable city and county. So in terms of the demographic, the people coming back, would there be, or are you seeing many people coming back, or if you are they ones that would have a connection with the area, or are they just choosing it?
Well, thankfully, with the medical device companies we have in the east of the city, most of the buyers that we have out there, and it's probably, this might be sound a bit extreme, but 75% maybe from Mayo, Roscommon, and Clare. So,
Oh, interesting.
which is a huge move. I mean, they're all based in Medtronic and Boston, and some of the other larger medical device companies over there as well. So yeah, it's incredible. But yeah, without Mayo, Roscommon, and Clare people, and to some degree Dublin people, we'd be absolutely lost. We wouldn't have any buyers over in the east of the city at all. When you're from Galway, you typically would stay where you grew up. Let's say you grew up in
Yeah.
Salthill, try to stay there. You might go to Knocknacarra, and then if you're from Renmore, you stay there as well. But it's yeah, it's amazing. Everything is shifting out the way a bit.
That's a really interesting dynamic. I haven't heard of that before. And I suppose, you see, this is where the value of estate agents and auctioneers on the ground, you really get to experience the buyers in a way that the data doesn't record. And I'm just, it's always a point of interest for me, you know, to know who's buying. And it's interesting. We were just looking at the Limerick market, and there it was very much a non-Irish population was making up the majority of people buying, but for the same reasons you're talking about, as in the industries that have gone in, you know,
Yeah.
so there you're talking mainly scientific, that the people being attracted into the area for work. So it's interesting to compare those dynamics, because in a way it actually helps us understand who our pipeline of buyers are going to be. But in terms of the demand, because that's so well established, really supply is still where we're focused in terms of the pipeline. So in the new homes that are available now, do you know what's likely to be coming on stream in 2024?
It's a tough battle. The planning setup that we have at the moment is a little bit on the tougher side for developers in particular. And the fact that it could take the best part of between 2 and 4 years to get planning is a financial crash for a lot of these developers, because in most cases then they have to buy the site. Let's say for a million, they're paying 10% interest, and yet again they have to put in their part five, they've their bond, and they've their contributions to pay as well. So the common consensus around the builders at the moment is that they're going to back off. You know, I have a couple of developers there who would jump on land if the planning was available and ready to go, but they're not willing to take the chance that, you know, they buy now and in 4 years' time they get to build, because at the end of the day they're paying most of it back in interest to the banks anyway. So I think you're going to see a gradual slowdown unless the method of planning is sped up. I just don't see anything happening, and I see it becoming a limited source in the future.
In terms of the residential land zone tax, do you think that will have an impact?
To some degree, yeah, to some degree. But again, it gets down to movement and process. You know, everything is taking time. You know, I don't know what needs to be done in order to get everybody to talk together and work together, but it's just, you know, buying land today and not getting planning for 2 years is just crazy. I mean, not that it should be easy, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, there should be a quicker process available. But I don't think I'm the smartest to tell people how to do that.
I will look. Planning, unfortunately, is not a Galway specific issue. It is very much a national issue, and it's similar in cities and in regional towns and market towns. The same experience seems to be that. I suppose what's making it very different is in the larger cities, you're attracting international capital that's able to
Yeah.
invest in maybe the apartments that local home builders don't have the capacity to do, because we still have viability issues. So, I mean, in terms of the builders you're working with, are they all delivering houses, or are there many involved in apartment schemes?
No, apartments don't make money, unfortunately, albeit that you need density in most developments. But, you know, if you take, for example, the price of a finished product of an apartment, unless it's overlooking Salt Hill or Galway Bay or whichever like that, you're not going to get the return. And it's just a costly output. You know, by the time you put in your lifts and you put in your hollow-cores and you put in your fire eggs throughout an apartment block, there's not much left in it. The main money is made off semi-detached and terrace homes, particularly in 2 and 3 beds rather than apartments anyway.
You know, over the last number of years, while policy has certainly been pushing out international investment, you know, like as we saw through the REITs, you know, where they were trying to maybe deliver PRS schemes or even student accommodation, generally capital was being attracted to Dublin and to a lesser extent Cork, but Limerick, Galway, Waterford missing out. So in terms of the money that's being invested in Galway, where is that coming from? Is it all fairly local or certainly domestic money?
It's mostly local, I have to say. Yeah, there's a lot of, say, some funds and so on as well are seeing the value of houses in Galway, but mostly it's local. No doubt about it. It's the same builders, the O'Malley's, the Burkways. You've got your BOC, Agrimac, all these local builders who see the value in building in Galway, and they know the market, so they stick with it.
I know we mentioned there in terms of viability issues, but when we're looking at, say, just looking at delivering new homes for potential home buyers, so I suppose maybe excluding those that would be purchased en masse by approved housing bodies for social housing or anything like that. In terms of the pipeline of supply or demand, I mentioned there at the start that we almost take demand for granted now because, a couple of years ago, we might say, well, yes, there was demand, but it's a qualified demand. It's a demand that can access mortgages, whereas actually now we're seeing that pent-up demand has gotten very organised. Most of them are sitting on the mortgage approval and having to renew mortgage approvals while they wait for homes to become available. So are you confident in terms of the pipeline of demand for new and second-hand homes in Galway?
Yeah, I mean, the demand is there. We launched a scheme recently enough in Moycullen, and at the moment we didn't do a launch per se, but we just put it on the market, and we've taken 16 deposits out of 20. So I mean, that's an incredible result. Another scheme in Owenmore, where we again just opened it up, had open viewings on Saturdays and Sundays, and the first 22 went within probably the weekend. And then we were on the back of that, we were able to sell the second phase, but they didn't increase the price in the second phase, which typically you'd have. But in that particular scheme as well, they finished the houses from top to toe. I mean, there wasn't a single thing outside of a kitchen appliance to put in there, and that's it done. You have carpets and floors, but if you're seen to give a bit back, buyers will help and handle it as well.
Very good. And in terms of, I mentioned there, in addition to new homes, you're also manager of private treaties, and auctions maybe would be what O'Donnellan Joyce be well known for in the region, and had some really interesting auction activity. So where does the private treaty sit in terms of the proportion of transactions going through the office?
We're obviously the harder working people in the office, as you can imagine. You don't need to stand in a room and take bids on it. This is the harder part, where you get out and physically have to talk to people and get them to come along. But no, private treaty is still as steady as ever, but it's limited supply. I mean, a lot of people will move from a 3 and 4 bed semi and try to get into a detached house. However, the detached house now has gone beyond their price point. So now they're looking at renovations, extending into their attic, putting an extension onto the back. An issue with that is that the cost of the materials and the cost of the build to the back and the attic has gone up. So people are saying, well, am I better off putting in 50,000? Will I get 50,000 back if I were to sell it? But which is hard to know. But so a lot of people are taking the view of just sticking tight at the moment and, live with the 2 kids screaming in the sitting room and be part and parcel of that. But, it's a tough one because there's very little supply out there secondhand, where, normally speaking, you'd have between, I suppose, 70 and 75 houses for sale in Knocknacarra, whereas I was looking this morning, you've got 35, sorry. And then in Owenmore, which is a massive suburb of the city as well, you've got 29 houses available. So it's dwindling the number of supply units out there, and the demand is going up as well. But yeah, it's going to be a real testing time, I think, in between Q1 and Q2 next year with supply. It's going to be a real hard-fought battle, I think, myself.
Yeah, and we know on average, I think it was the daft.ie report from about 2 weeks ago was showing that new homes on average, so across the country, down the volume of second-hand homes available was down 20% year on year. In Galway, would it be below or average, or below or above average in terms of the reduced supply compared to this time?
Oh, I think definitely it's dropped down. Yeah, I had a meeting with Justin Malloy in the CIF this morning, and we were going through new bills and houses available as well, and the dwindling supply. I mean, a lot of the forecast would say that there'll be fewer and fewer houses put next year and the year after as well. So it's going to be a tough battle to see what to do. But if the planning can correct itself and create the developments for people to be able to build houses in a quicker and more timely fashion, then we could be okay.
Does Galway have an issue with vacant? I mean, I spend a lot of time walking around Galway. Unlike other cities, I don't see a high level of vacancy. Now, maybe of commercial higher, but say in terms of residential, you don't see a lot of residential vacancy, but sometimes that's not always obvious when you're walking around. Would Galway be impacted by that?
To some degree, yeah. I mean, there must be issues there in the background in a vacant office space, or not even a house, let's say, that might be going through probate, but there might be some family issues, or somebody who's gone into probate intestate, where they don't have a will or whichever like that. So I can't see anybody sitting on 300,000 or 400,000 euros without doing anything on it. But there are a few, yeah. There's a regular amount. But no, it's not that. Unless seeing some of the suburbs between council estates and so on as well, are there vacant units there? They don't have the manpower to renovate them. I just don't know. But there are the occasional vacant units in the city. All right.
Notwithstanding what you were saying earlier about people maybe who want extra space, but rather than moving, they're looking to see how they can create extra space in their existing home. I always appreciate that there's quite a long lead in time. For some people, they might reach out to an estate agent or an auctioneer maybe a year in advance of thinking about selling their home. So what kind of conversations are you having with homeowners currently, who might be thinking of bringing their home to the market?
Well, a lot of them are just deciding on, like myself, a situation where you've got two children and you're looking at each other in the sitting room and two kids running around the place. So the ideal setup there would be to buy a house that would have a playroom. But that's not often the case. You can't often afford those type of luxuries, I guess, as well. So then some people will look into the idea of a steel tech shed. Tom Brett or Sean Brett is offering the most amazing home offices or playrooms or whichever. So a lot of people are beginning to factor those into the back of their gardens as well and making full use of them as well. So that's the other option that people are beginning to do. Should I do this or should I do that? But I think for a short-term temporary kind of solution, a lot of people will go for the likes of a steel tech shed or so, or just a steel tech office or home area, I guess.
I thought it was interesting earlier when you said that people in Galway, unlike maybe the Roscommon and Sligo and Mayo and County Clare buyers that are keeping you going at the moment, in the new homes, that people from Galway tend to want to stay in their area to a very a hyper local extent. So does that impact people when they're thinking of trading up or down? Because obviously there's no guarantee that if they were to sell their home, they'd be able to find something in such a small area.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're from Salthill or Knocknacarra, that's where you'd ideally like to stay, and you kind of swallow hard, in some cases, and just live in that smaller house to live in the area that as well. And as you have children growing up, they have their friends in the areas, they have their schools in the areas, and then moving to somewhere else. In some cases, it's like getting a nosebleed or the heebie-jeebies. You just don't like to go out beyond your comfort zone. So you ask a Salthill man to move to Renmore, there's no way he gets to the Huntsville and he starts to turn around. Or even for my setup, I mean, living in Galway City and having to possibly move out to Annadown, where my wife is from, like in the middle of Park Hotel, I start getting the shakes as well. So no, it's a very localized area. Everybody loves where they live. It's a fantastic city, and to be honest with you, I couldn't pick a better city to live in the world as well. And and that's what a lot of people are from. I mean, there's a lot of Polish and Indian families who are living here as well, and it's their home now as well, and they're part of the community too.
Very good. And obviously that's lovely to hear from a community point of view, but it also amounts to very little in the way of movement. So as in you've got people staying in a home. So, historically, Irish people have never moved as frequently during our lives as, our UK neighbours might have done, and so for many people, buying a home, really, they're only going to do this possibly twice or three times
Correct.
in their adult lives. So, when you make the area smaller, in terms of the potential then in Galway, is there potential for these prime areas in Galway, these really desired residential areas? Is there development potential? Is there capacity there for more?
Yeah, there is, but then it's down to the value of the land. Everybody now who has an acre or 2 acres or 3 acres within these areas automatically are looking for World Cup and Euro Million money. It's just not there. I mean, you look at the cost of building houses now from what it was pre-COVID to what it is now, and it's absolutely frightening. And most builders would say to you want to get your head examined in order to start building houses around. So it is a scary task for these builders to take it on. And, if their backs are against the wall in terms of the financial part of it as well, and they can't get the money out of it at the end, they just won't do it. If you're blocked by planning, like another developer we know, I mean, it's a horrible, horrible place to be. You have to keep your chest out and keep going, but it's hard. It is hard. But I think if they freed up some of the land and zoned it, and if you didn't use the land, you have to for the sake of the city and housing, you need to be able to expand into these areas.
To be able to give even a ray of light to prospective buyers, what is the pipeline looking like for 2023 for both new homes and second-hand properties?
We have 2 new schemes, and that'll make it the best part. I would say about 300 to 400 units coming on stream between east and west of the city. I haven't been given the nod on 2 of them, so I can't really discuss it too much with you. But if they come on scheme, it'll be a great assistance, with a lot of new houses as well. And then from speaking to some of the other agents as well, they have a number of clients who are beginning to slowly drip feed new estates out there as well. But again, it's just you're held back by the planning process. And if the builders aren't going to be building houses, we're going to run into a big trouble. Whereas second-hand houses, there's no other way to go for them to go but up financially. But yeah, it's going to be a tough task, I think, as well.
In terms of Galway, just because you mentioned planning a few times, it is one of the local authority that comes in for criticism, and sometimes that's often that's in relation to its transport gridlock in the city. It's certainly a city that has attracted criticism in terms of its planning, but are there challenges in Galway maybe that we don't have in other regional cities?
I'm not too sure. I mean, I'd never criticize anybody in Galway City or Galway County Council. They have their job to do. They follow a process. They follow, what they have to do. They're doing their job. Maybe so that just needs to be looked at. They're going through the motions of what they have to do on a day-by-day basis and do what they feel is best for the city as well. But the whole city is caught with this transport system issue we have. I live 6 kilometres from town, and it could take you nearly 45 to 50 minutes to get in traffic. And if you leave at 8:05, but if you leave at 8:55, you could be in 10 minutes at most. And then if you're to do an appointment to, let's say, over in the east of the city, you'd want to be leaving the best part of an hour to get there just in time for the viewing as well. So it is a big frustration. I mean, they're trying to get this ring road put in place, but I don't see it happening anytime soon, unfortunately. It's just flawed with issues. But yeah, it's a big frustration.
Does that influence home buyers then when they're looking, whether it's for new homes or second-hand homes? Does that influence buyers when you talk to them, depending on how they need to, bring their kids to school or work or wherever they need to be?
Yeah, indeed. Like, that's the first thing you'd set out to them is, like, you're looking to buy a car, but you're working in town. And just you say it to them straight. I said you can be the best part of 45 minutes to get here and there, but most people, they have decided on an area they want. I mean, the employment is on the east of the city, so that's where the people live out there. And if you're from that side, or you're from maybe Roscommon, Mayo and Clare, which would be up May, it's easier to get home then as well from that side of the town. But yeah, you'd want to love Salt Hill and Knocknacarra and Barna to be working over in the east of the city. And, it just depends on your family dynamic and, what you want really.
Yeah. No, look, these are certainly interesting times. In terms of, I suppose, what your expectations are for the marketplace there in 2024, what kind of trends are you seeing? I mean, we've talked about first-time buyers and those wishing to trade up and down, but across the country, we know the stats are that buy-to-let investors have been exiting the market almost consistently for 7 years at this stage. Are you seeing anything to buck that trend, or are you seeing any activity amongst the buy-to-let investors?
You know what? Yeah, that's it's a common conversation you have with people that investors are getting out. But if I be totally truthful with you, I think it's fueled by estate agents just saying, look, they're all getting out, they're all getting out. You should sell. But the truth of it is, there are some people selling, but no more than there were over the last couple of years. So personally speaking, I think it's just been fueled by estate agents in the media about people getting out. But that's my opinion in Galway City. And I'm sure there are some people who are just fed up with the whole setup between tenants and landlord as well. And the difficulties they have with dealing with tenants. So if a tenant decides not to pay rent, you have to bring them to PRTB, and it could be another 6 months or so without rent. And if they make your life hard, they can make it harder by not paying the rent. But I think there's not as many people getting out as the media tend to put out there.
No, but that's actually a really refreshing thing to hear, because actually the RTB and their own stats have said that, yes, we can see landlords exiting, but actually there are a certain number coming back into the market. So actually we know that the lack of any sort of balance of fairness between landlord rights and tenant rights have really been an issue that being a landlord is quite there's onerous tax and regulatory issues there to be contending with. But actually, the RTB stats themselves show that actually there are people coming in. So it's interesting to hear that. So whatever about not having a higher number selling, are you seeing many people come into the marketplace as buy-to-let?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of people coming in, but a lot of them will be, mainly focusing on, well, the majority, I'd say 80% of them are looking at the future with children of theirs coming to college. If somebody is taking a view, say, well, like my 8 or 10-year-old or 12-year-old is going to be coming to Galway in the next couple of years, maybe we just buy a place so that we won't struggle to pay rent when we actually need to have it as well. So that's where we would see a lot of the investors coming in as well. They buy at the moment and then have it for themselves, maybe during a summer period, and then for the kids coming to college as well. But there are a number of people then who are buying just in speculation, just for a return. A lot of the pension funds are buying, obviously, because there's tax benefit there as well. But overall, there's a steady stream still coming. Not as many as there was maybe in the last 3 or 4 years, but there's still a number of people coming in.
Very good. And Niall, I'm conscious of your time, and I don't want to say too much, but I suppose I just, maybe you might have some words of advice for anybody who is thinking of selling or bringing their home to the market over the next 6 to 12 months. What kind of advice are you giving them?
The key to it is to ring your solicitor and tell them you're going to sell it. The second one is ring your solicitor and tell them you're going to sell it. And the third one is keep ringing your solicitor, because a lot of people get us to do a lot of work. We put it on the market, and then all of a sudden I haven't notified my solicitor, because the deeds can take the best part of 3 or 4 months to get from bank, or maybe 2 months, be it what may. But no, it's to be organised. When you have your affairs in order, you have, let's say you're selling a city property, the front of the house is the most important part. If you need to power hose and clean it, do it. If you want to put flowers outside it, maybe a flower basket, that's important as well. And just presentation. I mean, the day that you're doing a viewing is have it right, have it clean, have it decluttered as well. And, if you're in the other side of it then as well, if you're on the buying side of it as well, just check out the area, accidentally bump into a neighbour, and just ask the estate agent, is there any issues that you foresee as well? Probate, when you're buying from an estate, can take the best part of between 3 and 6 months in some cases as well. So there's some relevant questions you need to ask, but overall, just do your homework on it, and don't be afraid to ask neighbours as to what the area is like as well, because sometimes you can be told anything you want by an agent, but you don't want to find out the wrong way afterwards.
Niall, that is a fantastic way to close, and I love that you give that advice, because we talk so much about the tools and technology, and I do believe that technology is the way to speed up the process and to streamline it for everybody, but you cannot underestimate the value of, as a prospective home buyer, walking around the area. And I like that you said accidentally bump into the neighbours, because you're absolutely right. That's how you get the inside track on what it's like to live in an area that, to be fair, even the estate agents wouldn't know themselves, because they mightn't be there after dark, or they're not trying to park their car when everybody and their partner and their visitors are in the evening. So that's some great advice, and it's advice that we used to give about 20 or 25 years ago. So I love that still being given out today. So that's super. And I suppose really the final points for today, just because we haven't really looked at maybe the commercial market. And I know that's not your area there, but again, O'Donnellan and Joyce are dealing with some really high profile auctions. And are there any trends that I suppose people need to be aware of in the Galway market for 2024?
No, it seems all steady. I mean, it's we're trying not to change the mold too much as well. Again, it's a big town in a city, really. I mean, we've got 3 main streets here, really. That's all. And they haven't built any commercial areas really in the last while as well. So I mean, that'll maintain itself. There's always demand with the growing population in the city and county as well. So I think if they just keep going the way it's going, I don't see any change or dynamic there whatsoever.
That would be good news for investors. Again, the certainty that the regional towns can provide as well is something that there are many investors who seek that out. So I would just recommend to anybody who's particularly interested in the auction side to take a look at the O'Donnellan and Joyce website for upcoming auctions. Niall, thank you so much. That was Niall Browne, partner with O'Donnellan and Joyce Auctioneers and Private Treaty and New Homes Manager. My thanks to producer Katie Tallon and to the production team at Hear Me Roar Media, and huge thanks to our show sponsor daft.ie, Ireland's most visited property website. And thank you indeed for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode of Property Roundup. In the meantime, please be sure to subscribe to our other Irish and international real estate and construction shows on iPropertyRadio.